and good morning, Minister and witnesses, and thank you for presenting here today. I suppose I just want to raise a couple of issues here. It's in connection to the progressing disability model, which I know is not under your remit, but it affects schools in that we have seen a withdrawal of speech and language therapists and occupational therapists and physiotherapists from special schools. And I'm very concerned about that, as are the parents. They're very distressed about it. And you then referenced the social inclusion model, and we had the NCSE in here recently as well, and they were speaking about it too. And to me, that sounds like an excellent model. I know it's only a pilot programme at the moment, but I'd love to see that rolled out. But is one not in contravention of the other, withdrawing services from a school and then looking at a pilot programme to put services into schools? I think the right method would be to put the services into the school to support the students. If we want an inclusive education and we want students with additional needs to attend mainstream, we have to put the supports in to do that. And then I'm very concerned as well is that we've seen the expulsion of a number of children from special schools. These are children with additional needs, and they're being expelled disgracefully from special schools. But the bottom line is that the schools are not given the supports to support those students, or maybe the children didn't get the supports at an early enough age to ensure that they could engage in education as they go along. And also connected to the progressing disability model, and I'd just like your comment on this, they seem to have moved away from the assessment of need under the Disability Act of 2005, where it would be a multidisciplinary assessment which would outline the health and educational needs of the child. And we're gone towards, instead, the child being given this standard operating procedure, which I'm told is an hour and a half assessment, to be just put on another waiting list. So as a result, they're not getting a diagnosis. Then when the child needs to get into an autism unit or a special class or a special school, they're not admitted because the school says they must have a diagnosis. So I was told when I brought this up with Minister Rabbitte that they don't require a diagnosis to get into a special class or a special school, but most schools have that in their admissions policy. So there's, I just like clarification on that because I think it's something that's quite serious. And just in relation to the EPSIN Act, I welcome the review of the EPSIN Act, but I just ask that it will be fully implemented this time. There are several aspects of that Act that were never fully implemented, in particular the individual education plans for children. Also, my colleague Chris Andrews, he may make the end of the meeting if time allows, but he did raise a concern about the Dublin 6 area and the lack of ASD classes in that area, and the fact that over €72,000 every day is being spent busing children out of their locality into special schools or autism units in different areas, and there's actually 14 students being bused into one area in the Dublin 6 from another area when there's need in that area. So he's pointing out a lack of planning. And the last thing, I know I have a lot of questions here, but the last thing is on Irish Sign Language. Irish Sign Language is one of our official languages since 2017. There's a course in Trinity where students who are deaf or hard of hearing can take Irish Sign Language as a subject. They become qualified, yet they're not recognised by the Teaching Council to teach that subject. Teaching Council tell us it's not part of the curriculum. The curriculum are telling us so the Teaching Council don't recognise it. So it was kind of being put from one to the other. So just if you have a comment on that as well, please. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair.
You have a number of different questions there, so I'll try and deal with them as best as I can. First of all, around the progressing disability model, you're quite correct. That is obviously under Minister Anne Rabbitte's remit. Obviously, I keep a close eye on it because it has a direct effect on my remit. It is being implemented by the HSE, and we know that existing therapy resources have been reconfigured into the geographically based community disability network teams. But I know that following a specific request from Minister Rabbitte in April of last year, the HSE paused the removal of multidisciplinary supports from existing special schools. It is a separate matter, in my view, from the school inclusion model, which, as you know, we had a pilot in 2019, which was paused then, obviously, because of COVID. That has now recommenced in the CHO7 area. And the department is consulting with relevant departments, including the Taoiseach, Health and Children, and a memo is going to be coming to government soon in relation to that. It's always been our view in relation to the school inclusion model that it will be a complementary therapeutic resource. So it's not in lieu of the HSE therapeutic services. It should be in addition to that and should in fact complement it. Just around Epson, yeah, I mean, that act is there since 2004. Parts of it, you're quite correct, weren't commenced. The department at the time looked at parts of the Act, and it was going to cost, I think, around 225 million to try and roll some of it out. That's why it badly needs to be reviewed and will be reviewed. And I've set up a steering group, and we're in the process of setting up an advisory group as well. And then it'll go to short consultation so that we can make sure that we have a fully implementable Act, because there's no point in having an Act, in my view, unless we can fully commence it. So it's very timely that we're doing that right now. Just in terms of transport, we have about 15,500 children at the moment with special education needs who are transported on a daily basis to primary and post-primary schools, and that's at a cost of over 289 million. That was last year, and there's a review of that scheme currently underway. I know you mentioned there that Chris had mentioned some pinch points that are happening. I hope that review will enhance efficiencies and provide better value and a better service for students, because obviously we want to make sure that they have an efficient service when they're attending school. Just in relation to the ISL as well, yeah, I mean, I'll look into that for you in terms of the Teaching Council. I'm not aware of why they wouldn't be recognising it. That seems to be an anomaly, and that should be ironed out. It's a very good course. It's a new course, and I think there are about 6 students, as far as I'm aware, who are doing that at the moment, and it'll provide a great specialist training for these students. So I can follow that up for you. I think they were all your questions. Just around
the diagnosis
expulsion issue. Sorry?
Yeah, the expulsion and the diagnosis then as well.
Just around expulsion, the team of the NCSC, NEPS, the inspector and the department obviously work with officials with schools who've expelled or suspended students. It does happen. It happens rarely, and it's something that is regrettable when it happens at all, because obviously you want to keep a child in school if at all possible. Sometimes that's just not possible. And again, it's about collaboration and engagement. In terms of a diagnosis is needed for a special class and a special school, but not for mainstream.
Yeah, but unfortunately, children are not getting a diagnosis through this new progressing disability model.
Yeah,
so
well, that's something I'll mention to my colleague. Yeah.
Just on this, I know Minister Rabbitte asked the HSE to pause the withdrawal of services from special schools, but the information I'm getting is that it wasn't paused, that the services were withdrawn. There may be some small interaction with staff in the schools, but the interaction with students has finished, and that is a concern. Or the therapists are linking in with the school, but not on site.
Yeah. Well, I can follow that up with her and see what the position is. I know that in June, she provided an additional 85 therapy posts to be employed within the closest proximity of special schools. So I can discuss that more further with her, see what the position is.